Water types are some of the most reliable and versatile Pokemon out there. They've got big boys and little boys and everything in between. The water type is also the most common type, accounting for about 15% of all Pokemon. So how can we make these run-of-the-mill Pokemon more special, you ask? By looking for the most uncommon version of them. Shinies, of course. When it comes to shinies, water Pokemon are some of the most stunning in the entire game. They've got the looks and the strength to back it up. So today I'm diving into a brand new challenge, beating the entirety of Pokemon Violet using only shiny water Pokemon. And because I can't resist making things harder for myself, I'll also be adding in a bunch of extra rules on top just to keep things interesting. Will these sparkling water warriors be enough to overcome the odds? Let's find out. So, as the sun rises on a beautiful new day in Paldea, we wake up from our deep slumber and realize, oh god, I'm gonna be spending the next few weeks of my life hunting for shiny Pokemon. Better get started. Well, I wish I could, but first we have to say our goodbyes to Mom and follow Clavell to get our starter Pokemon. Now, since this is a water type only challenge, obviously I'm going to choose the cutest little duck-billed boy, Quaxley. But since this is also a shiny only challenge, we're not allowed to keep him for very long. At least he can get us through the tutorial section so we can actually start catching some shinies and begin this challenge. So as always, we head to the beach, stumble across a legendary, give it a sandwich, escape the spooky cave of Houndoom, save Penny from some grunts, and have our first day at the academy. Whew! That is quite the tutorial, but now we can finally start hunting for shinies. So I headed south to pick up a few things like this Swift TM and went over to explore these ruins. I continued around the pond a little and then, yep, that's a shiny Psyduck. Yeah, I wasn't even looking properly at this point. We just came across this random encounter. I will most certainly take that. This is genuinely some of the most insane luck I've ever had in a Pokemon challenge run, and yes, of course I caught the little guy. I named our first catch Ken, and wow, take it in. This stunning blue Psyduck. Look at his expression, the way he wobbles. Oh, he is so present. We could all be a little bit more like Psyduck, couldn't we? Live in the moment, folks. Subscribe to the channel. But I'm not stopping at just one Pokemon. I want to catch a Pokemon that I know can be an absolute wrecking machine. It's actually one that I've used in a very similar challenge, the Shiny Fairy Challenge. That's right! I want to catch an Azurill. And unfortunately, I wasn't quite as lucky here. This one took me a while.
Listen!
Oh, sorry. What was that? I couldn't hear you because of the active noise cancellation from my everyday earbuds from today's sponsor, Raycon. Recently, I took a big trip to Sorry, I'm probably yelling, huh? Recently, I took a big trip to Europe to film and hang with some friends. Content coming soon. I was rocking these things across the entire continent. One thing that I learned from my trip is that traveling and filming is stressful. But it didn't really matter where I was because the active noise canceling from the everyday earbuds allowed me to dive into a podcast and relax no matter where I was on the road. Also, it's got a 32-hour battery life, so I didn't even have to worry about charging the entire 2 weeks that I was gone. Plus, these things can connect to 2 different devices at one time with their multi-point connect. That means they can connect to your phone and your laptop at the same time, so I didn't even have to change it over. I just changed what thing was playing music at a certain time. It was crazy. Another thing about me, I've got weird ear canals. No, you cannot see them. Never ask me that again. But these Raycons honestly never fell out of my ears. Earbuds normally don't agree with what's going on up here, but these ones fit perfectly because they have all sorts of different tip sizes to choose from. I just chose the right one for my ears and they never slipped out. Not a single time. I was walking around exposed to the elements, but rain or shine, I took my Raycons out with me on my walks because they're waterproof. I didn't have to worry. It was no big deal. Honestly, these things were freaking awesome to have with me the whole time. So if you want to get your very own pair of Raycon headphones, you can head on over to buyraycon.com/Quinn Rutledge to get 20% off the best-selling everyday earbuds. That link is on the screen now and down in the description. Thank you so much to Raycon for sponsoring today's video. The headphones are amazing.
Now back to it. It was a lot of going back and forth, and considering how long it took, I'm not convinced I didn't drive right past one. I mean, it's a tiny green ball in a field of green grass. It's kind of hard to see. Now, I didn't exactly time this, but after 2 days of roaming while listening to some podcasts, I finally had a wild Azrael hop on over towards me. I caught this sneaky little guy and named him Small Bowl, and I think it's pretty fitting. And honestly, this green little shiny Azrael outside of the field of grass does look pretty cool, I'll admit. Now that we had a beautiful party of 2, I thought I'd do something a little unusual. I normally save this fight until after I beat a gym or 2, but since the Stony Cliff Titan is weak to water types, I thought I'd try taking it on straight away. So I traveled east of Messagoza to fight Cloth, and yeah, to no one's surprise, Ken absolutely demolishes the crab. It only takes a couple of water pulse attacks and the fight is done. But now Miraidon can dash, so that's cool. Next up, I did what I probably should have done a while ago, which is the first gym. The gym challenge was easy, of course. I mean, you just have to roll a big olive around. There's nothing really stopping you, or standing in your way, or really any challenge to this at all. But that allowed me to finally face Katie, the bug gym leader. And this was super easy. I mean, it's the first gym. It would be easy, right? Well, actually, no. I lost. Yeah. Just to give you guys an idea of how difficult these runs are, I am getting destroyed by the first gym. Nimble and Tarantula go down easy enough, but man, Teddy Ursa is kind of a bit of a hitter. But of course, I can't just give up here, so I decided to try again. But this time, right before the battle starts, Small Ball learned Bounce, a flying type move that is super effective against these pitiful bug types. All I had to do now was make sure that Small Ball lived to fight the bear and unleash a firestorm upon him from above. One use of Bounce and boom! That's more like it. One final hit and there we go. The first gym badge is ours. Now, the next gym leader we have to face is Brassius, and he's a grass type trainer, which obviously is super effective against water types, so that's not so good for us. I knew here that if we even attempted this battle, it would not go well. I mean, look at our party. Look at these guys. We got a freaking mouse and a duck, man. We're not going to be able to beat a tree with a mouse and a duck. So, let's get stronger. First off, by evolving Small Ball. It really didn't take long, thankfully, as our friendship level was already pretty decent at this point. So, after pampering it a little and offering up some vitamins, our little green ball evolved into Meryl. And now we have a big green ball. But when I said we were going to get stronger, I meant it. I didn't want to stop at Meryl since I knew we could easily get the extra few levels that we needed to get an Azumarill. So I fought a few more wild Pokemon and here we are. Pikachu from Wish. Yeah. No, but really, the shiny Azumarill is actually so nice looking. The yellow just stands out so much and it looks great. All right, I think we're in a pretty good position now. Let's take on... Wait! We can get stronger. Let's just, I don't know, catch another shiny, shall we? After just 4 hours of exploring the vast plains, the rocky hills, and the tropical beaches, that's exactly what I did. A shiny Marini! Just like that, one of my favorite shiny lines in the entire game. It looks so much better with its pink color scheme versus its normal color. Welcome everyone, Marnie the Marini. Her being a poison type as well as water is going to help us out massively against the next gym leader. And at this point, with our party powered up to the max, it was finally time to face one of the greatest challenges in this run, Brassius and his Gracias type Pokemon. A battle where every Pokemon would be super effective against every member of my team if it weren't for Marnie. With her on my team, the fight was a breeze. Petlil and Smoliv couldn't do anything against Venoshock, and the only one who put up a fight at all was Sudowoodo. The ace Pokemon with their terastallizing always give me a bit of trouble, but Marnie did more than enough damage to allow our Small Ball to come in and finish the fight. And just like that, Brassius is down and the second gym badge is obtained. So next up is one of the many rival battles with Nemona, and this one was pretty interesting. I had Pokemon that were super effective against hers, but she also had some that were super effective against mine, so this was going going to be weirdly easy and weirdly hard at some points. Starting off with Rockruff, who is weak to water attacks, so yeah, easy. Ken manages to win that exchange, but then there's Palmy, an electric type that obviously is super effective against my entire party, and I have nothing to counter it at this point, so things really started going downhill here. First Ken goes down, and then Marnie takes a ton of damage, and I basically just had to brute force my way through here. I guess I got lucky though, since Marnie had just enough health left to land one final blow, and then I got double lucky that Nemona's final Pokemon is a fire type, one that is super weak to us. Well, I guess it's not really lucky because she chose the Pokemon after we chose our starter, and it was pretty clear that we were doing a water-only challenge, but that's Nemona's bad. That's not on me, okay? Anyway, that fight could have gone worse. At this point, I was staring down the barrel of another gym leader. One that was probably too hard for us to take on. There was basically no way I was ever going to beat Iono and her electric types with the current setup of our team, so instead I tried taking on a second Titan, the lurking Steel Titan Earthworm. Since Steel types are not very effective against water types, I assumed I wouldn't have much difficulty here, so I headed to Area 3 of the East Province and found myself an oversized worm. Hey Earthworm, you met Ken? Well, it looks like neither of us do all that much damage, so it's kind of a battle of attrition, but we have 3 Pokemon and I could do this all day. Ken does go down in phase 1, but does a ton of damage on his own, so Small Ball can easily come in and get us into phase 2. And with Arvin helping us out, phase 2 was even easier. Small Ball and Toadschool didn't have any trouble at all. And now at this point, we've taken on some gyms, beaten Nemona, and even a couple of Titans, but there is one group of enemies that we've left alone. So let's fix that. Starting with Team Star's Hakamo. Now admittedly, I am quite over-leveled here, and like I said, I've kind of been pushing these guys to the side. I really just don't like doing these Team Star fights, I'm gonna be honest. But it's better late than never, and to nobody's surprise, this was really quite easy. Ken took out Pawniard, and then Small Ball handily beat the Starmobile. But because that was so easy, I thought I'd try taking on the second Team Star group. This time, it's Mella's Fire Team. We head into the battle against the leader and started off with Ken, who landed an insanely powerful, super effective Aqua Tail on Torkoal. I mean, look at that damage! Absolutely massive. Anyway, the Sunlight really was a much bigger nerf than I thought it'd be, and surprisingly, Ken does take the L. But our all-reliable Small Ball is up next and ready to finish off Torkoal. And now all that's left is the Starmobile, and at this point, Small Ball is doing more than enough damage to get the win. Mela is defeated, and that's another Team Star group down. Now, before taking on the next gym, which would undeniably be an extremely tough uphill battle, I wanted to catch another Pokemon. This time, I wanted to catch one of the most famous Pokemon of all time. One that probably everybody thinks of when they imagine a powerful water type. Well, kinda. I, of course, am talking about Gyarados, but it'd be pretty difficult to just find and get a shiny one of those, so instead, we're gonna have to get a shiny Magikarp and evolve it. As well as having some really great base stats and being a general powerhouse, Gyarados is also a dual type with its second type being flying. And spoiler alert, that is going to be a huge help in the rest of this run. So I headed to the beach and looked around for several hours, which, side note, I don't even know why I am putting myself through this. And as the hours ticked on, and I looked and looked and looked, I began to question, why do I do this? It takes so long finding even one shiny. And it drains my sanity, and why do I keep making these shiny-only videos? Why do I keep putting myself through this mental torment? Am I cursed to just keep repeating the same thing over and over? Do I have to roam these lands for the rest of eternity? Are these shinies even real? Oh, hey, a Magikarp. Okay, I know I say this a bunch, but shiny Magikarp actually is one of my favorites. It's like it's covered in gold leaf. Who doesn't love a gold version of a regular thing? It's so unnecessary, but so awesome. Eventually, our Great Balls overcame the sheer iron will of this flopping fish, and we caught it and named it Mr. Dose. Now, all that was left was to evolve it into Gyarados, and oh my goodness, those red curves, my guy. Woo! So cool. Well, Next up is something I've been dreading. It's Iono. And unfortunately for us, while it does resist grass, Gyarados is 4 times weak to electric types because of its secondary flying type. Yeah. We headed over to the city and went into the battle, and it actually went a lot better than I thought it would. Starting off, we have Ken versus Wattrel, and somehow Ken actually manages to outdamage the electric type. I don't really understand how my Psyduck was able to beat a Wattrel, but it does, and that allows me to get in a sneaky attack on Bellibolt for a little extra damage. Once Ken goes down, which was inevitable, I send out Mr. Dose for her debut fight. Sorry that it has to be this one, but it does, Mr. Dose. And there she goes. Down in 1 hit. Fortunately, we have Marnie, who manages to get past Bellibolt and do some pretty decent damage to Luxio. And last in our party, we have the usual carry, Small Ball. We take down Luxio, and then it's Ace versus Ace. Small Ball versus Miss Magus. We trade blows back and forth until we're both down in the yellow, and then, no. We were so close. Look at Miss Magus's health, 1 hit away. Oh. That one was painful. And honestly, I don't have the stomach to try that again, so let's go do another Titan. Now, Bombardier has historically given me a bit of trouble every time I've faced it, so let's see how we do this time. Yeah, we were over leveled, so we just kind of smack it in the face and move on with our life. Yeah, I won't bore you with this. So at this point, I was really getting the itch to catch another party member, so after how things went against Iono, and based on the fact that we have nothing else to do other than face her, I was really getting the itch to catch another Pokemon. I mean, this is a Pokemon game after all. So I looked to my list of water types and racked my brain trying to think of the perfect Pokemon to catch. And the one I settled on was Weasel. It may not be a dual type, but it is very good at being a water type, and it is one of the strongest that I could get right now. So I explored the beach area around Porto Morinda and found this trio of Weasels. They kind of look adorable like that, like a little family. Look at them, wow. And of course, we profiled them and caught the special one and nicknamed him Gold. Perfect. And while we're at it, we may as well spend some time here leveling him up and evolving him into a Floatzel. So after gaining just 1 more level off of some wild Pokemon, we now have this awesome looking little guy. He's not too dissimilar from his original form, but that white scarf-like part definitely makes him stand out from the crowd. So fashionable, so fetch. Oh, he's gonna be a champion among the Floatzels, I can feel it. And since we're right here anyway, let's take on Kofu, the water gym leader, who is literally supposed to be after Iono, but is easier for us to do. Isn't that crazy? Iono's so hard, man. And Kofu's kind of a pushover, to be fair. Now, since we're both mainly using water types, this was a bit of a slog. Neither of us could do all that much damage, but I had a bigger party and better Pokemon, so I just slowly whittled his team down until he had none left to fight with, and that's Kofu. A slow and pretty uneventful battle, I'll be honest. But because of this and a few wild battles, Ken was actually ready to evolve into Golduck. Now he's a darker shade of blue compared to his original form, but the power boost we get should be enough to trade off for this awful shiny. And next up was Larry, my best buddy. The 5th gym is a normal type 1, and well, that kind of sums it up. Really. I'm not super effective against him, and he's not super effective against me. It was just a normal battle. The size difference between Mr. Dose and Kamala is pretty hilarious to see, but even more hilarious is how Kamala's slam attack looks. Like, how did it flatten Gyarados? He's so big, and that bear is so small. It doesn't make any sense. Anyway, Mr. Dose hits back with an Aqua Tail, and the Koala is down. Dunsparce manages to tank 1 attack, but Ken finishes it off pretty quickly. Of course, with Larry only having 3 Pokemon, he is now down to his last, and there wasn't really anything he could do here. I had the numbers advantage and just chipped away at his Staraptor for the win. With Larry beat, I already had my sights set on the next gym battle, but I couldn't just go straight into it, so I spent about an hour leveling up my party a little. Not too much, just a few levels. But with that done, it is now officially Rhyme time. Now, Rhyme is a ghost type user, and they're weak to dark type attacks, and it just so happens that both Mr. Dose and Marnie have some of those attacks. With that in mind, my plan was to rely pretty heavily on them to do the big damage. Starting off with Mr. Dose, I use Dragon Dance to buffer speed and attack while Marnie hits with Bite. After buffing for a few turns, I instead start buffing Marnie, and well, these two guys are absolutely overpowered. It was an embarrassing sweep. Banette is taken out first, followed by Houndstone, then Toxtricity, and finally Mimikyu. Overall, a pretty easy one to say the least. Afterwards, we had yet another battle with Nemona, and this kinda went exactly like the last one. Lycanroc wasn't a problem, being weak to water and all, but once again, the electric Palmo caused a bit of trouble. It wasn't anything I couldn't handle, but at some point, we're really gonna need to get a counter, especially for the champion battle. For now, though, I had enough power to just brute force through, and the rest of Nemona's team wasn't really an issue. Alright, on to the next Titan. That, of course, being the Quaking Earth Titan Iron Treads, and, well, I wasn't really worried here since water is super effective against it. I start with Mr. Dose, who lands a few good bites, then swap to Marnie, who finishes Phase 1 with Liquidation. Phase 2 is just as easy since I make it rain and then attack with a crazy powerful Hydro Pump, and now it's time for a real challenge. A battle that I was honestly pretty worried about. It's Team Star Atticus. Now, this may not seem like such a bad fight at first, but man, I was really having trouble here. I must have tried this battle at least 5 times throughout this run, but here we go again. Starting out, we have Mr. Dose, who faces off against Skuntank. Skuntank strikes first with a Sucker Punch, which does not much damage, and I return with the Hurricane that blasts the little skunk away. I go for one more Hurricane, and Skuntank avoided it. How does it avoid an entire Hurricane? That doesn't make any sense. It's fine. It just means we take a tiny bit of extra damage before the next Hurricane destroys it. Next out is Muck, who can't really stand up against the Hydro Pumps, but once again, it avoids my second attack. Why are these Pokemon so slippery? Anyway, I hit with a couple more and Muck finally goes down. Next is a tiny Revavroom, which Mr. Dose once again gets the better of. Man, I don't know why I was struggling so much on the other attempts, probably because I was lower level. Now we're super high level, so it's like easier, right? That's just kind of how it goes in Pokemon. But right as I say that, the Starmobile finally avenges his fallen brethren and Mr. Dose takes a nap for now. But Ken is here to save the day, or steal all the glory. I don't know which, but she gets the job done and Atticus is down. After the fight, we have a nice little chat with Penny until she gives me some crazy side eye, and then I run along to my next destination, the 7th gym, Tulip's gym. With Tulip being a psychic type trainer, there wasn't much I could do to be super effective here, so I just had to use the best available Pokemon at the time. Starting with Marnie, who tries her best but ends up getting defeated by Farigiraf. Fortunately, Gold is here to get revenge and does so with a critical hit, but then is immediately hit with an energy ball and goes down for the count. Okay, then I bring out Small Balls, who... Jeez, that energy ball does a lot of damage. Small Ball also faints, and this is looking pretty bad at this point. Okay, let's try Ken and Aqua Tail. There we go, that's more like it. Gardevoir goes down and onto his Pathra, but this is kind of getting close now, and I only have a couple Pokemon left. And now Ken is down as well. Great. Okay, Mr. Dose, it's all up to you. We fire off a bite, and Espathra is down. We just need to beat her ace Florges, and we hit with the bite, which is just not quite enough. And Gyarados is in the red, but maybe we can crit? Oh no, Florges hits first with the Moonblast, and Mr. Dose goes down. But wait, what's this? A secret Golduck that I've had in my party this whole time? Get out there, Kevin! Finish this fight! Kevin uses Hydro Pump and boom! It's all over. Tulip is done. I mean, I obviously had Kevin the whole time, but she hasn't really done anything up to this point, and I kind of forgot about her. But she's undeniably the MVP here. Let's go, Kevin! Whew! That was a close one. And of course, after such an intense moment, Nemona has to come in and ruin it and challenges us to yet another battle. We know how this goes, Nemona. Palmo is your only good Pokemon. But I will say the battle is getting closer and closer every time. I mean, here we lost like half of our party. So we really need to get a counter to that little freaking rat soon, because trying to brute force this battle next time will not go well. But nevertheless, that is another victory, and it's time to face Grusha. We head into the fight and lead with Small Ball, who uses a big fat bounce to get past Frostmoth. Bjartic was a little trickier, so I instead started by using Rain Dance to buff my water attacks, then swapped to Mr. Dose for some Hydro Pumps. Water isn't super effective against ice, but thanks to the help of the rain, we managed to do pretty substantial damage. After 2 attacks, Bjartic is down and we're on to Titan. For this guy, I decided to use Gold since ice is not very effective against him, and this let me just slowly out-damage Titan. And lastly, we have Altaria, who I didn't really have a strategy against, but now it's 4 against 1, so I just used my numbers advantage to whittle Altaria down. And that's Grusha done. So with the 8 gym battles done, it was time to start prepping for the final big battles and the Elite Four. So of course, I wanted to catch another Pokemon. One that would help me against the harder battles like Hassel and Geeta, and the one that I wanted was none other than Cloyster. Having a Pokemon with some Ice-type attacks will massively help out against any Dragon-type trainers that I need to face. So I traveled on over to Casa Royal Lake, and after a couple of hours, I finally found what I was looking for. Wait. What? A shiny Veluza? I wasn't even looking for that. That is so awesome. Well, obviously I can't pass this thing up, so I catch him and name him Luigi because of his fancy green spikes and not related to any other Luigis in pop culture right now. Wow, that's actually crazy, but I guess one of these Pokemon had to be shiny. So, welcome to the team, Luigi. Luigi is great and all, but we still have a Cloyster to catch, so I once again rode back and forth until I finally spotted that deep blue shell of his. And I think that color actually matches him way better than his usual one. It looks more marine-like, an alien. It just fits the Cloyster vibe more. I like it. And I think the most fitting name for this guy is Dragon Hunter. And at this point, our team is now stacked. So let's test out just how good this team is on a Team Star group. This time, we're facing Ortega. And I'm happy to say that this was a blast. Azumarill's bounce and paralyzing was a little annoying, but it was nothing Marnie couldn't handle. Just a few hits from Venoshock and we're already 1 Pokemon ahead. Against Wigglytuff, I use Small Ball, who has never, and at this point I'm convinced will never, disappoint me, getting the win out of that 1v1. Doxbun put up a decent effort against Mr. Dose, but I am yet to see anything go toe-to-toe with my Gyarados and come out on top. So Doxbun goes down and we're on to the final challenge, the Starmobile itself. And yeah, this was a little tricky. Mr. Dose got finished off, then Gold got beaten, and we almost lost Dragon Hunter thanks to confusion. But right at the last second, Dragon Hunter pulled out the big guns and secured us the win. We lost a few Pokemon there, but overall, I'm very happy with this team. Next up is the final Titan, the False Dragon Titan Dondozo. And I don't think it would surprise anyone to say this was an easy battle. Mr. Dose alone was enough to get us past Phase 1, then Dragon Hunter took care of the true Dragon Titan Tatsugiri. Nice and easy. Now there's only a couple more loose ends we need to tie up before we can start the big fights of the run. Starting with Aerie of Team Star. So usually Aerie is one of the harder fights in this game, but lucky for us, fighting types are weak to fairy flying and psychic attacks, all of which I have a bunch of on my team. So Mr. Dose, Small Ball, and Veluza are super helpful here. I also use Dragon Hunter to get us through Annihilate and Marnie and Gold to help with the Starmobile, and once Luigi finishes it off, we can now head to Mesagoza and... oh my god. Oh, why didn't you tell me I forgot about Iono? Oh. Well, since I'm obviously massively overleveled, this was a steamroll. So one of the hardest gyms turned into one of the easiest. Poor Iono. Anyway, as I was saying, we can head to Mesagoza to face off against Clavell, which is kind of awkward, but here we go. Mr. Dose versus Oranguru. I hit first with Thunder and, it's not a lot of damage. That's actually a pretty bad move to have on Gyarados, it turns out. Oranguru hits back with Foul Play and, Oranguru is actually out-damaging Gyarados. It seems there might be a problem with my strategy here. That is not good. Let's try Luigi and his Crunch. That's more like it. Oh, great. He's asleep, and now he's dead. Okay, Marnie, you're up. One hit from Bite, and Oranguru is down. Perfect. But then she falls to Clavell's Gyarados, followed by Mr. Dose, then Small Ball, then Gold, and finally Dragon Hunter. I mean, the first attempt wasn't that bad. We did manage to get to Clavell's final Pokemon Meowscarada, but it turns out that was actually a really good attempt. One of the best, actually, as I then proceeded to try the battle again and again and again without getting much further. It turns out this is actually one of the hardest battles in this entire run. Maybe the hardest, given the way I was approaching it. I tried over and over with different plans and different strategies over the course of an hour, but nothing I did was working. That was until I started the battle with Luigi. Luigi has the move Crunch, as I mentioned earlier, and since it's the strongest Dark-type move on the team, and Veluza has some really good speed and physical attack, this made getting past Oranguru much easier. Next up is Marnie, who faces off against Abomasnow, since poison attacks are super effective here. I started by using Toxic, which boosts the power of Venoshock, and then just went to town. Against Gyarados, I used my own Gyarados who knows Thunder, seems like a pretty straightforward way to win. And then we stuck with Mr. Dose against Houndoom so I could use Earthquake. For Poltergeist, I actually wanted to swap back to Luigi, but he was asleep, so instead I brought out Gold, who also has Crunch. And then for the final obstacle, the Terra Meowscarada. A true Grass-type terror. Never mind, Dragon Hunter just destroys it with Ice Beam. We're good. Cool. And finally, we have defeated Clavell. I can't show all the attempts here because, retention, YouTube, all that stuff. But believe me, this was rough. But because it was so difficult, it actually made the rest of the run easier. My team was way more balanced now, and I had a much better grasp on their strengths and weaknesses. So with my newfound power, I took on Arven with a very similar plan, and it went incredibly well. I beat his entire party on the very first try, and only lost 2 Pokemon along the way. In fact, a lot of the big battles, which are usually quite difficult, were kind of a breeze. Penny's team of Evolutions is usually a huge pain to deal with, but even this battle was done on the first try. Though to be fair, in the Penny battle, Mr. Dose is kind of OP. Alone, she blasted through Jolteon, Leafeon, Vaporeon, and Flareon, leaving it a 4v1 against Sylveon. And then Gold pretty easily beat Sylveon with Wave Crash, and now with pretty much every battle I could do at this point taken care of, it was finally time to face the Elite Four. And did I mention how strong my party was yet? Because my party is very strong. Every single member of the Elite Four could do nothing against any of my Pokemon. Rika got destroyed, Poppy got obliterated, Larry got gently put to bed with a kiss on the head, and Hassel got embarrassed by Dragon Hunter, as the name would suggest. The closest battle was against Larry, but even then I still had 2 Pokemon left at the end. I know I'm kind of breezing over the entire Elite Four, but really guys, they just didn't stand a chance. But with the Elite Four done, it is time for a real challenge. The whole reason we're here, the battle that could cement me in history as the greatest Pokemon trainer in Paldea. It's time to battle Geeta. So the battle begins, and it's Small Ball versus Espathra. Espathra decides to set up Reflect for some reason, which doesn't help at all since I just use Hydro Pump for the easy KO. Or at least it would, but Espathra is faster, so Small Ball faints. Great, that's not a problem. Espathra is already in the red, so Gold can easily clean up. Against Go-Goat, I swapped to Dragon Hunter so I could make use of the super effective Ice Beams while avoiding the opponent's super effective Grass-type moves. For King Gambit, I swapped to Mr. Dose, and after a lucky evade, we overpower it with Earthquake. So far, so good. Mr. Dose and her Fire Blast was more than enough to take care of Avalugg, then I used one last Thunder to deal as much damage as I can to Veluza. After fighting 2 Pokemon, Mr. Dose finally goes down, so I have to bring out Marnie, who can finish off Veluza and get us onto the final Pokemon, Geeta's ace, Glimmora. As with all the Pokemon League trainers, she opens by terastallizing her ace, but at this point, it's far too late. I still have 4 Pokemon left, so I can just take my time, slowly chipping away at Glimmora, savoring what will be a long-awaited victory. And with one final Wave Crash, I am crowned Paldea's new champion, and what a journey it has been. But it's not over yet. There is, of course, one final battle that we need to take care of. The one and only Nemona. But you guys already know how these rival battles go. I don't think a single one has given me much trouble in this run, which is a nice change of pace from our usual single type runs. The only major problem on Nemona's team has been Pawmot, but with the addition of Luigi and Mr. Dose, our type coverage, especially with Earthquake, gives us a big advantage. Dunsparce and Goodra are also beaten by Mr. Dose, Orthworm is taken out by Small Ball, and Skeledirge is wiped out by Gold's Wave Crash. And with that final attack, that is officially challenge complete. Thank you so much for watching. Till next time.